Have you ever wondered why, as the years go by, you start craving silence more than conversation? Why familiar gatherings suddenly feel unfamiliar? Why you, someone who once lit up every room, now find more comfort in the stillness of your own space? It's not because you're broken. It's not because you've grown bitter. It's because you've grown wiser. There's a quiet transformation that happens with age. You begin to see through the noise. You no longer chase connection for the sake of company. You start protecting your peace like a treasure and choosing solitude not as an escape, but as a homecoming. In this video, we're diving deep into a truth that rarely gets spoken. Why you're avoiding people more as you grow older, and why that's not just normal, but necessary. We'll uncover 6 powerful psychological reasons that might just reflect your inner world. And by the end, you might realize something unexpected, that your distance is not detachment, that your silence is not sadness, that your solitude might be your greatest strength. So stay with us, because this journey inward may help you understand not just where you are in life, but who you've quietly become. 1. The burden of past hurts. Why some older adults step back. The quiet weight of past betrayals. As we age, we gather more than just photos and albums and memories of holidays past. We also collect heartaches, some sharp, others more like slow, steady bruises that fade but never quite disappear. And it's not about bitterness or anger. It's about wisdom, hard-earned wisdom that teaches us to be more careful with who we let into our lives. Take Margaret, for example. She's 82 now. In her younger years, her home was a hub of her community. Every Saturday night, friends gathered around her table for home-cooked meals, jazz playing softly in the background, wine flowing, and laughter echoing through every room. But slowly, things changed. A friend she confided in spread a personal story. Another never called again after her husband passed. No big dramatic fallout, just little wounds that added up over time. These days, Margaret prefers the sound of silence in the company of her garden to the buzz of forced conversations. And you know what? That makes perfect sense. There's a kind of armor that forms with age. It doesn't mean you're closed off. It means you're protecting something sacred. Yourself. After giving so much of your heart for so long, after offering kindness that wasn't always returned, you begin to realize something crucial. Not everyone deserves access to you. You begin to sense more clearly who leaves you feeling lighter and who leaves you feeling drained. Psychologists sometimes call this relational fatigue, when relationships start feeling more like a job than a joy. It's especially common among those who've been through emotional hurt. People who've shown up for others again and again, only to be forgotten when it was their turn to lean on someone. So when older adults start stepping back, it's not about giving up on people. It's about being discerning, about knowing that your emotional space is precious, and not everyone should be allowed inside it. And this shift isn't always dramatic. It happens in quiet ways. You don't answer every invitation. You keep conversations shorter. You stop pretending to be okay with being dismissed or misunderstood, because now, finally, you understand your worth. You've lived enough life to know the cost of giving too much to the wrong people. It takes strength to walk away from connections that no longer serve you. It takes courage to prioritize your peace. And it takes deep self-respect to say, I've been hurt before and I won't let it happen again just to be polite. So if you're someone who finds themselves stepping back more often lately, know this. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming wise. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say no. 2. Longing for silence rather than meaningless conversations. The quiet craving. Choosing stillness over small talk. There comes a time in life when silence begins to feel like a friend. It's not that you've stopped liking people. It's just that your tolerance for empty words, surface-level conversations, and the need to constantly perform starts to wear thin. You no longer feel the urge to nod politely through gossip or humor someone's opinion just to avoid awkwardness. Instead, you find yourself drawn to stillness, the kind that settles your heart and lets your mind exhale. Think of Walter, a 77-year-old retired school principal. For decades, he was a go-to guy for pep talks, committee meetings, and neighborhood BBQs. Always upbeat, always present. But lately, when the phone rings with another group invite, he hesitates, not out of bitterness, not because he's tired of people, but because the energy it takes to show up, to smile through small talk, to navigate shallow conversations, it feels like too much. He'd rather sit on his back porch with a warm cup of tea and the sound of birds than spend 3 hours in a room full of noise that leaves him feeling emptier than when he arrived. That's not withdrawal. That's wisdom. As we grow older, we begin to notice how rare meaningful conversation truly is. We crave sincerity over spectacle, real connection over routine banter. And when we don't find it, we no longer feel guilty for walking away. The noise of the world no longer charms us like it used to. In fact, sometimes the quiet feels like the most honest place we can be. It's in those quiet spaces that we start to hear ourselves again, our real thoughts, our true emotions, our inner voice that was once drowned out by the hum of everyday chatter. It's not about being antisocial. It's about being intentional. When you're younger, you may sit through endless social events, talking just to fill the silence. You laugh when you're supposed to, nod when expected. Keep the peace even when your soul feels restless. But later in life, you begin to understand the weight of your presence. You stop giving it away so freely. You seek conversations that nourish, not drain. And if you can't find them, you sit with yourself and realize, to your surprise, that your own company is actually enough. There's a strength in choosing peace, in saying no to performative politeness, in honoring the value of your time, your energy, your attention. So if you find yourself skipping events more often, stepping back from group chats, and choosing solitude over socializing, it doesn't mean you've given up on people. It means you've started listening to yourself. And what you're hearing is the sound of peace calling. And peace is worth answering. 3, feeling no longer understood. When the world stops hearing you, the loneliness of feeling misunderstood. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from feeling unseen. You're in a room full of people, maybe even family, maybe even friends. You speak, but your words seem to float right past them. You share a story, and they smile politely, glance at their phones, or quickly change the subject. No one is being rude, but no one is really listening either. And slowly, you start to retreat, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. Meet Carol. She's 79, a former nurse, mother of 4, and someone who once juggled work, family, and caregiving with grace and grit. She's full of stories, some funny, some heartbreaking, all filled with the kind of wisdom only time can bring. But these days, when her grandkids come around, the conversation stays shallow. They talk about social media trends, the latest shows, the next big vacation. When she tries to share something from her past, the room goes quiet, not out of awe, but disinterest. No one asks questions. No one digs deeper. And after a while, Carol simply stops trying. This kind of disconnection is subtle. There's no argument, no falling out, just a growing gap between who you are and how people see you. You still care. You still want to be close. But the effort it takes to bridge that gap starts to feel like shouting across a canyon. And you begin to wonder, why bother? Psychologists call this emotional invalidation. It's what happens when your feelings, thoughts, or experiences are quietly dismissed. Not through insults, but through indifference. And it happens more than we think, especially as we age, because the world moves fast. Generations shift, priorities change, and without even realizing it, people stop seeing the depth behind your words. So what do? Many older adults begin to turn inward, not because they dislike others, but because being misunderstood hurts more than being alone. It's easier to be with yourself than to constantly feel like you're explaining, justifying, translating your very existence. Over time, solitude becomes a safe haven, a place where your thoughts aren't questioned, your stories aren't cut short, and your emotions aren't labeled too sensitive. But here's the truth. Your voice still matters. Your stories still carry weight. The problem isn't you. It's the world forgetting how to truly listen. So if you find yourself withdrawing lately, choosing quiet moments over noisy ones, just know this. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength. It's a deep awareness of what you need and what you deserve. And sometimes that's simply be heard. And even if it feels like no one else sees you right now, know this: you see yourself. And that matters more than most people will ever understand. For fear of being a burden to others. The quiet fear, not wanting to be a burden, is a fear that doesn't get talked about much, but it lives in the hearts of so many older adults. Not fear of illness, not fear of dying, but the quiet, persistent fear of becoming a burden. It creeps in slowly, not all at once, but in the little things: a hesitation before asking for help, a skipped invitation so no one feels obligated to rearrange their day, a decision to keep a worry to yourself because you don't want to add stress. And while it may look like independence from the outside, inside it often feels like silence born out of love and a little bit of fear. Take Richard, 84, a retired firefighter and widower. For years, he was the rock of his family, the one who showed up, fixed things, carried others. But now, after a fall that made walking harder, he declines dinner invites from his daughter more often, not because he doesn't want to see her, but because he doesn't want her to change her schedule, lift his walker, or worry about whether there's a ramp. They got lives, he says. I don't want to get in the way. That's the heartbreaking part. The people who feel like a burden are often the ones who gave so much. They were the strong ones, the givers, the ones who never asked for much. And now, when they actually need support, it feels uncomfortable, almost wrong. But this fear isn't selfish. It's rooted in love, in self-respect, in not wanting your presence to feel like pressure. It's not that you don't want to be around people. It's that you don't want them to feel like they have to be around you. So you stay quiet, you stay home, and your world grows smaller, not because you're lonely, but because you don't want to cause loneliness in others. The irony is, most families don't see their loved ones as burdens. They gladly make space, shift plans, lend a hand. But when you spent your whole life being the helper, learning to receive help feels foreign, vulnerable, exposed. And in a culture that praises self-reliance, asking for assistance can feel like failure. But here's the truth. Needing others doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And allowing people to love you in return, to care for you, support you, show up for you, isn't taking from them. It's giving them a chance to give back. If you found yourself pulling away, not because you want to, but because you're afraid to ask, let this be your reminder. You are not a burden. Your presence isn't heavy. Your needs aren't a problem. The people who love you don't carry you out of duty. They hold you out of love. And love, real love, never keeps score. 5. Old relationships fade away over time. When familiar faces fade, the slow disappearance of old relationships, after spending so many years quietly stepping back, partly from fear of being a burden, partly from the comfort of solitude, you start to notice something else, something even more subtle. The people who once filled your days, your phone calls, your calendar, are simply no longer there, not because of an argument, not because of anything anyone did wrong, but because time, life, and distance have done what they always do. They've pulled you apart. At first, it's small. A weekly coffee date becomes monthly. Then it's every few months. Then one day, you can't remember the last time you spoke. You think about calling, but life gets in the way. Or maybe you don't want to seem needy. And eventually, what used to be easy and natural now feels awkward and unfamiliar. This quiet fading doesn't always hurt. Sometimes it even brings relief. But often, it carries a soft sadness, a kind of mourning for something that didn't quite end, but clearly isn't there anymore. Think of Lorraine, 75. For decades, she had lunch every Thursday with her childhood best friend. They laughed over sandwiches, shared stories about kids, husbands, old teachers. But over the years, their lives changed. One moved closer to grandkids. One started caring for an ill spouse. The lunches turned phone calls. The phone calls turned to texts. And now, it's just the occasional holiday card. We still love each other, Lorraine says. But I think we've said all we needed to say. And maybe that's true. Some relationships are built for seasons, for certain stages of life. They grow when you're raising children together, working side by side, sharing routines. But when those shared experiences disappear, sometimes a connection goes with them. And that's not a failure. That's just change. But what's hard is that no one really tells you how to grieve that kind of loss. There's no goodbye, no closure, no clear moment when you say, well, that's over now. It just slips away quietly, and suddenly your world feels a little emptier. So you fill your days differently. You walk alone. You read more. You take your time at the grocery store. And when you see old photos or hear a song that reminds you of someone who used to be part of your life, you pause. You smile. Maybe you ache a little. But you also understand something deeper now, that not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some were there to teach you, to hold you, to walk with you for a while. And when their chapter closes, the best thing you can do is honor what was and let go without bitterness. Because growing older isn't just about losing people. Sometimes it's about choosing peace over chasing connections that no longer feel true. It's not loneliness. It's self-respect. It's knowing when to hold on and when to gently, lovingly release. 6. Finding joy in solitude. The unexpected joy. Finding peace in solitude. When old relationships quietly fade and familiar rhythms fall away, you might expect the emptiness to take over. And sometimes at first it does. The silence feels louder. The calendar feels bare. The rooms in your home stretch a little wider. But something surprising begins to happen, not all at once, but gradually. Like light filling a room at sunrise, you start to breathe differently, slower, deeper. You start to hear yourself again, not just your thoughts, but your actual voice, the one that's been drowned out by years of obligation, conversation, and noise. And in that stillness, you find something you didn't even know you were missing. Peace. True peace. The kind that doesn't ask for anything. The kind that doesn't judge. The kind that lets you exist exactly as you are. No expectations, no performance, no need to explain. It's not that you stop loving people. It's just that you stop needing to constantly be around them to feel whole. Think of Glenn, 81. For most of his life, he was the life of the party. A former radio host with a laugh that could fill a theater. His home used to echo with music, conversation, and the clatter of dinner plates shared with friends. But now, Glenn spends most evenings sitting in his garden, watching the birds, listening to the wind in the trees. When asked if he misses the old days, he smiles and says, I still carry them with me. But these days, I just prefer the quiet. This shift can be hard for others to understand. Loved ones might worry, thinking you withdrawn, grown sad, or given up. But the truth is, this solitude isn't about escape. It's about presence. It's about returning to yourself after years of showing up for everyone else. And that's not loneliness. That's alignment. When you finally reach the point where your own company is enough, it doesn't mean you've closed your heart. It means you've opened it inward. You've learned that contentment isn't measured by the number of people around you, but by how deeply you feel at home within yourself. You don't need to explain why you'd rather spend a morning sipping coffee alone than attending a noisy brunch. You don't need to justify why you skipped that reunion. You've learned to choose what feels right in your spirit, and that's the kind of wisdom only time can teach. So if your days are quieter now, more solitary, more intentional, know this, that isn't you fading away. That's you stepping fully into your own rhythm. You're not missing out. You're tuning in. And in this chapter of life, that simple act of choosing yourself, of loving your own presence, isn't just powerful, it's beautiful. Final thoughts. As we grow older, life invites us to shift away from the noise, the performance, and the pressure to be constantly available. It asks us to value peace over popularity, depth over distraction, and meaning over routine. And the most powerful thing we can do, begin listening. Listen to what exhausts you. Pay attention to how certain people leave you feeling drained. Notice when a room feels too loud or a conversation feels too shallow. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals from your soul. It's okay to say no, to decline invitations that no longer bring joy, to walk away from relationships that have quietly faded. It's okay to need stillness, to want space, to protect your time as something sacred. You are not a burden. You are not disappearing. You are becoming more yourself than ever before. So make room for solitude without guilt. Let yourself read slowly, walk quietly, and rest when you need to. Choose conversations that matter. Surround yourself with people who see you, not just politely, but fully. And above all, trust that your worth isn't measured by your schedule or your social life. It's felt in your presence, your peace, and your ability to know when to stay and when to lovingly step back. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment with number 1 to let us know you watched the whole video. We appreciate it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more great content. See you in the next video.